Hi, my name is Nicole, and I live in Vancouver, Washington with my partner Eddie and our cat Porkbow. I have myalgic encephalomyelitis, or ME for short. ME is a neuroimmune disorder, so it impacts the nervous system and the immune system, and it can look very different from person to person. So what I'm describing, my experience might be completely different from somebody else who has ME, but there are a lot of common threads. I think one of the most important things to know right away when discussing ME is the existence of PEM. So PEM is Post-Exertional Malaise, and this is the hallmark feature of ME, and it's also being seen in long COVID patients for a while now. And this is not just exercise intolerance, but also a delayed crash. Sometimes 12 hours, sometimes it could be 3 days later, and it's hard to track what causes a crash, which makes people have to live in kind of a bubble. ME is a very disabling, debilitating, and honestly depressing sometimes disease. I'm 32 years old and I can no longer work, and I'm mostly housebound. When 5 years ago, I was working full-time as a therapist, as a social worker. Very stressful jobs, but I loved them. I loved the chaos. I loved the noise. I loved never being bored and always having some kind of surprise or thing you've never seen before happen. I miss the spontaneity of life. I miss being able to drive to the gas station or drive anywhere. I used to love morning drives with the windows down, sun on my skin, and music way too loud. I miss the freedom and I miss the independence that comes with being able to drive yourself to a doctor's appointment or to the pharmacy, or even to just go get some Cheetos. Driving is out of the question, out of reach. Even being a passenger in the car, I have to wear sunglasses or recently blindfolds just to stay safe from the sensory that is the sun. It is not lost on me that one of the things I miss, the simple feeling of sun on my skin, is now something that I have to avoid. I think that is something that's very misunderstood. People with ME is they don't want to have to avoid these things. I don't want to have to run away from the sun. We're doing it to keep ourselves safe. We're not being dramatic, because for many people with ME, a trip in the car with the sun too bright and no protection from the sensory hell that is going on, for a lot of people that could cause a crash that would put them in bed for days or weeks. I went from a fast-paced and chaotic clinical social work career where I constantly had to think on my feet and make important decisions, to now having trouble spelling basic words or being unable to sit upright for more than a couple of minutes at a time. I held on to work for as long as I could, maybe longer than I should have, until at the end there I was working less than 10 hours a week, fully remote from home, and that was all I was doing. Closing that laptop and turning that phone off for the last time felt like a death, and in a sense it kind of was. It wasn't just the loss of a job, it was loss of purpose and the one thing that I always had confidence in, my ability to help other people. Looking back on my medical history, my provider and I suspect that I have had ME since adolescence. It felt like half of my childhood was taken up by ear infections and strep throat 4 to 5 times a year. It was episodic then. I had a crash when I was 14, and then again when I was 16, and then 19. But these were weeks, maybe a couple of months at a time, where I was pretty incapacitated. But it was constantly blamed on depression, even though I didn't feel depressed. When I told my doctor that, he kind of just nodded in acknowledgement, because from the outside, ME can very much look like depression. But ask someone with depression what they want to do tomorrow, and they'll say nothing. Ask someone with ME what they want to do tomorrow, they've got quite the list. I'm filming this because the general public and even doctors consistently get this wrong, and that leads to a lot of suffering. I'm doing this to try to be a face and a voice for those who can't, for those who don't have the energy or ability to tell their stories anymore. Today's a good day. I can sit up and I can film in bed, but there are millions of people out there shut in dark rooms with blacked out windows and a blindfold on. There are millions of people who have not set foot on ground in years. The reality of what it's like to live with ME every day is very challenging to try to explain to somebody, but I'm going to do my best to do that today. When I started my master's degree program, things were hard to keep up with because of my health, but I've dealt with being frequently sick, having migraines, different types of headaches, GI stuff, a lot of physical symptoms that throughout childhood kind of got written off as depression or anxiety or just some kind of quirk. So when I was in grad school, it was just normal to me being sick all the time, having headaches and constantly having to call out of your internship or miss classes. I was used to that. But then COVID hit, and it hit me 3 times that I know of. And during that time, I underwent a significant amount of emotional distress and trauma that, combined with my existing mild ME and our friend COVID, that's what pushed me from a mild episodic state to the chronic, disabling, debilitating reality that I live in now. I remember that first morning that I woke up with a feeling that I had never had before. My body was so heavy I couldn't move it. Every inch of me was in pain, and I couldn't move my hands or my fingers. So all I could do was voice to text my supervisor and tell him I would not be seeing clients that day. That was the first of many. Throughout history, ME has been referred to by many names, but most commonly and frequently, it is labeled chronic fatigue syndrome. This is a term that is largely rejected by the ME community because even though the fatigue is disabling, that just barely scratches the surface of the wide range of symptoms that someone can have. It's important to know that, first of all, fatigue is different from being tired. Fatigue is not, I didn't get good sleep last night. It's, I slept for 14 hours and I still feel exhausted the next day. It is sleeping during the daytime and being awake during the night. And that fatigue is crushing. And it is one of the symptoms of ME that is maybe more visible to people on the outside. Now is a good time to talk about PEM, or Post-Exertional Malaise. This is the hallmark feature of ME and what sets it apart from similar conditions. So PEM is the severe and disabling worsening of ME symptoms after even the smallest amount of exertion. And that's not just physical exertion, like moving something heavy or going for a long walk. It could be emotional, mental overload that can cause somebody to enter PEM. And PEM is incredibly impactful on your life because you don't know what might trigger it. One day you might be able to walk to the mailbox all right, and a different day you might push yourself through it and then you're in bed for a couple of days. It's hard to plan anything around that. It's hard to plan a life around that. Some people will be in this crash, this PEM state for days, weeks, months, sometimes years. And even those long stretches of PEM can be caused by slight exertion, depending on your severity and just where your level of functioning is at. The last time that I really went out and did anything that felt normal but special was getting to go to my friend's wedding. And I tried to make it through the whole thing, but the standing for pictures, the walking to the ceremony, I was in a crash. I was in PEM for a couple of weeks where I couldn't do anything. I don't go to events like that anymore, or even smaller ones. I don't go out anymore. I can't. How can you do that? How can you go maybe have a good time knowing that you are going to be in bed the rest of the week, and all of those things that you wanted to do that you probably couldn't anyways are going to continue sitting there? Most people are kind of surprised to hear that insomnia can be a big part of ME, but that is very true for me. There's no greater hell than being so tired, not sleeping for a day and a half despite medications. Your sleep schedule constantly flips around. At least mine does. I have restless leg syndrome associated with ME. I don't remember the last time I got a good night's sleep. I do get decent naps sometimes because I do have to take 2 naps every day. I'm 32 years old and I require 2 naps a day. It can look really nitpicky or rigid to people, the way that a lot of us with ME have to pace and budget our energy, but it really is that, because with ME, once you reach that limit, you are pulling from the next day, the next week, the next month. There's no rest that cures that. We want to live, but we also want to do it with as little pain as we can. And sometimes that means budgeting very, very strictly and having to let people down a lot. I hate letting people down. I used to be the person helping my friends and family, and now I'm the one that needs help. Thank God for my partner. Shout out, Eddie. In my childhood and adolescence specifically, but also very much as an adult with a chronic illness, a lot of this was and continues to be blamed on depression, which could look like it from the outside, but that kind of mislabeling and assumption delays diagnosis by years sometimes. And yeah, it's hard to look back and see that for what it is now, and also just to look back at how life used to look like for me, where I always did a lot, maybe too much, and that contributed. But you know, I did all the programs, the volunteering, got my master's degree. I started working as a therapist and social worker, to go from that to being housebound and not unable to care for myself, but in a lot of aspects. I used to be the one driving people to their doctor's appointments. Everybody, their symptoms and experience with ME will be different, but for me, the biggest and most impactful symptoms are chronic pain, very much widespread pain, but worse in my head, my neck, my back. I would say that fatigue is, of course, high up on the list, but for me, I think that the sleep changes have been probably one of the bigger contributors to why I couldn't keep working. I used to, thank God it's settled down a bit, but I used to be ME fatigue, but not be able to sleep for 3 or 4 days. And not because I wasn't tired, it wasn't a mental health issue, but my sleep continues to flip like that. So right now I'm up at 3 a.m. and I have to take 2 naps during the day just to make it through and be able to stay up until 8 p.m. But that could flip at any minute. Something that can further complicate diagnosis is the amount of comorbidities that can come along with ME. So that's different conditions that tend to occur in people who have ME. Some of these that I have include migraines, endometriosis, POTS, hypermobile Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, and restless leg syndrome. There are many comorbidities that relate to ME, which again complicates diagnosis and treatment. Those are just some of the symptoms that people might have who have ME. And I think it's very important to include our long COVID peeps, because we are seeing a lot of people with long COVID now meeting criteria for ME. And that has brought a bit more attention and spotlight on this disorder that has for a long time been pretty ignored. And I've had some really good doctors and nurses. Having a doctor or a provider of any kind just validate you and talk to you like a human who's going through things, that can change everything. And then there are a lot of doctors who are not really educated on ME because it's not taught in a lot of medical schools, which sounds crazy, but it's true. And that's not at the fault of those doctors, because I've met some who, eagerly seek out information on my health, my diagnosis, and that makes all the difference. But there's got to be a change in the way that the medical system addresses the management and treatment of people with ME. Instead, we tend to kind of be passed around like a hot potato to different specialists, referred here, referred there. And when you're experiencing strange symptoms like I was, you want to find an answer. You're going to keep going to those referrals. You're going to keep seeing those specialists and doing those tests. If more of the medical community knew how to advise, diagnose, and treat people with ME, it could save a lot of money and a lot of suffering. It's kind of a win-win. when I finally was diagnosed in 2023. When I was finally diagnosed in 2022, I wanted an answer. And it's really hard because a lot of times those around you don't necessarily believe you. Doctors don't know what's going on with you, so they just give you different diagnoses, and then you share that with people around you, and then it changes next week. After a while, people get tired of hearing that, and that's fair, but it doesn't have to be that way. After years of going to different specialists, getting all these tests, after finally getting to a neuroimmunologist, wow, I can't believe I said that on the first try. He didn't like sugarcoat it. I remember he told me, I don't have all these other neurologic issues which are seen on tests and easier to diagnose, and pretty confidently said that, have you heard of myalgic encephalomyelitis? And I think a lot of people who have struggled to find help and a diagnosis know the feeling of, I read about it a little bit, and I just remember looking at him and saying, don't they call that chronic fatigue syndrome sometimes? And I could see in his face that that is obviously not the term that he would use to describe my illness, but that is what a lot of people know ME by, is chronic fatigue syndrome. So a lot of people will, myself included, introduce themselves or their diagnosis as saying I have ME CFS, because it is unfortunately an easier diagnosis for people to wrap their heads around, but it is largely rejected by the ME community because, ME is a lot more than fatigue. The fatigue itself is enough to knock somebody over, but it's the unpredictability of the PEM or the crashes. You can't plan work around that. You can't even plan your own life around it. When I did finally get to the neuroimmunologist and we discussed my history at length, which shout out to every doctor or specialist that actually takes the full appointment time to meet with their patient and fully discuss everything. That seems so basic, but thank you. We went over my history and we came to the conclusion that, what I kind of thought is whatever I had going on was also episodic in my childhood, which the repeated infections, so like strep like 4 or 5 times a year at least, constant ear infections, Epstein-Barr, so I've shared the polar opposites of how my life was 5 years ago compared to now. And yeah, my functioning has obviously been reduced quite a bit. I am filming this in bed, and I'm filming it over the course of a few days because having a light on or the window open for too long like this in my face, it's difficult. It's hard for me to sit up sometimes, but I find myself pretty lucky. A lot of people with ME are not able to do this, and I hope that we can shift the narrative from people seeking attention to people seeking help. My days now look like having to go wherever my body decides we're going, wherever my nervous system decides we're going, in a physical sense. When you have ME or long COVID or something similar, you're not sitting around with your feet up all day relaxing. You're battling the frustration of not being able to take a shower in years, which is true for me. I haven't been able to stand up in the shower for years. The guilt of having to ask so much of the people around you. Doing a project this big is difficult for me. That didn't used to be the case. I used to be able to do big projects, complicated things, no problem. But being able to sit up for long enough to film anything longer than 45 seconds is hard for me. And I do this for the people who have suffered for years, often decades, who are constantly dismissed, and to the people who are now feeling the effects of long COVID and seeing that suffering begin, and for the doctors who want to help but just don't have the information, and for the family and friends who don't realize how vital their support could be to you. My life moves a lot slower now, even if that's not by choice. If there's some kind of silver lining in all of this for me, it's that I'm now forced to slow down and take care of myself in a way that I have never been able to or allowed myself to do before. It's a hard thing to learn at 32. I know this can be a pretty heavy and depressing condition to talk about, and I think it's really important for family and friends and doctors as well to know that we're not complaining just to complain, even though it might seem like we are attention seeking or want pity. It's normally not like that. Normally it's just that this is a big part of my life. It's a big part of a lot of people's lives, is their very complex chronic health journey. And just like any other part of people's lives, jobs, hobbies, even if it's not fun to talk about or live, it's real and it's part of my life. It's part of maybe your loved one's life. When you're going through a journey like I've been on and like so many people have been on, the medical system can feel like a maze. And it's difficult because you never know what you're going to get with a doctor. So to all medical providers that might be watching this, just know that a few words, an extra 30 seconds with a patient can make a world of difference for them. Validation is, not to be cheesy, validation can be the best medicine. Even though my life is slower now, I try to fill it with as much as I possibly can, using the limited energy I have left over from just trying to exist. I fill those spaces with art and jewelry making, and I like to work with clay. With being very limited mobility wise, it's a very good tactile, somewhat physical activity for those emotional times when I can't walk it off like someone else might be able to. And as always, I find animals to be the very best medicine, the best therapist too, because they don't talk back. My last words go out to all of those exhausted, undiagnosed people out there who have been told that there's nothing wrong. Trust your body, do your research, and know your rights.